YouTube, I'm here doing my prediction video for UFC Fight Night Poirier versus Hooker. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Kay Hansen versus uh, Yun Fei. And to me, Fei, even though she's been fighting for a long time, I think that kind of works against her. She's 35, as where Kay is like 20. And in all honesty, the amount of fights they have is not that different. Fei has like 13 and June has like 10. Their records are pretty similar overall. I just think Kay's the younger, much bigger fighter, and I think their style is pretty similar. And I just think, like I said, I think she's the younger, bigger fighter, and I think she's got more room to grow. And I just think that she's gonna, outsize Jun in this fight and win by decision. Next is Jordan Griffin versus Youssef Zahel, and to me, these guys fight pretty similarly. They're both striker jiu-jitsu dudes. Youssef probably has a little bit better wrestling, but I prefer Jordan Griffin. I think that overall striking jiu-jitsu, he's a little bit better at both. And I feel like Youssef, unless he's being super aggressive with the wrestling, which could also might gas him out. I just think Jordan Griffin's the more well-rounded guy. Like, they're both well-rounded. I just think he's a little bit better in the areas where they're both really good at. So I got Jordan Griffin. I don't know if he finishes him, but if he does, I think it's late third. So I'm going with Jordan Griffin to get a late third finish. Next is Takashi Sato versus Ramiz. I can't say this guy's last name. To me, Ramiz just looks like a submission guy. I feel like he's a decent wrestler with good submissions, but I think Takashi Sato has good enough judo where he can stuff the takedowns, and I think on the feet, Sato has a massive advantage. I think that he's a significantly better striker, and I think, like I said, I think his judo takedown defense is good enough to stop Ramiz from just taking to the ground, and I think Sato's eventually going to win by knockout or TKO on the feet. Next is Philip Lins versus Tanner Boser, and to me, Tanner Boser's definitely got the better foot movement, but I think overall, Philip Lins is just better. I think that the striking is pretty close, but I think Philip Lins has more power. And I definitely think if Philip Lins takes this to the ground at any point in time, he's a much better grappler. His, jiu-jitsu is really high level. He's a lot of submission wins. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does that, because he didn't do that against Arlovsky, and I think he might have regretted that. And I think that's what he does in this fight. I think it's a back-and-forth striking fight until Philip Lins eventually gets us to the ground. I think once it's there, he's going to win by submission with like an arm triangle or rear naked choke. So I'm going to go with Philip Lins getting like a second round finish by submission. Next is Luis Pena versus Kamala Worthy. And to me, I feel like Kamala Worthy's biggest strength is just his overall speed with his hands. I think his overall technique is okay. It's probably about as good as Luis. I think the hugest difference is the grappling. I think Luis has got the much better wrestling and much better jiu-jitsu. I think Luis has that advantage over most people he's going to fight. And I think that's what we're going to see in this fight. I think that they're going to box for a little bit, but I think Luis isn't going to be stupid. I think as soon as he gets an opportunity to force this to the ground, he will. And I don't know if he'll submit Kamala Worthy, but I think he's going to at least either ride out a decision or get a late rear naked choke win. But yeah, like I said, I just think there's a massive advantage in the grappling for Luis, and I feel like as long as he takes it there, he's going to win. And because of that, I'm picking Luis to win. Onto the main card, the first fight is Sean Woodson versus Julian Erosa. And to me, these guys are both primarily strikers. I think Julian also has a massive edge on the ground if he does take it there. To me, Sean, as good as his striking looks, he doesn't have a lot of power. And I feel like that's something that's going to hurt him. I think Julian Erosa can take a good shot, and I think he has more knockout power. I also feel like I said, if Julian takes this fight to the ground, I think he's got a big advantage in terms of the overall grappling. And because of that, I'm leaning towards Julian. I feel like Sean, even though he is probably the better striker overall, his lack of power worries the shit out of me, because I feel like in his last fight, he dropped Kyle Bochniak like 10 times, but he couldn't finish him. He just kept knocking him down with jabs and shit like that, but he just couldn't do it. And I feel like I said, if Julian can force this fight to the ground, his jiu-jitsu is way better than I feel like Sean is anywhere on the ground. And because of that, I'm going with Julian to win by submission. Next is Gil Vellante versus Marcus Green. And to me, I feel like Gil has a decent puncher's chance, but I think Marcus Green is just the more athletic guy of the two. I feel like his movement and overall striking on the feet is a little bit better too. And I just think he's the naturally bigger guy. I think he's the more natural heavyweight, as where Gian Vellante is, not as much of a heavyweight. And because of that, I think Marcus Green's either going to dance around him for 3 rounds or eventually win by knockout or TKO. So I got Marcus Green winning by knockout. Next is Brendan Allen versus Kyle. I can't say this guy's last name. These guys are both primarily wrestler jiu-jitsu guys. I just think Brendan Allen's way better on the ground. I also think on the feet, Brendan Allen's way better. He has good striking. He just prefers to grapple on the ground. And that's why I feel like wherever this fight is, I think Brendan Allen he has at least a slight advantage on the ground and a big advantage on the feet. And because of that, I feel like As long as he doesn't get caught in a weird position, he should be able to win by submission or knockout, either in the second or third round. So I got Brendan Allen winning by finish. Next is Mike Perry versus Mickey Gall, and this fight depends 100% on Mike Perry. I mean, I don't know how hard he's really training. I mean, I don't know, for the people that haven't heard, he like left his camp and he's training with his girlfriend, and I don't know how real that is. I mean, he showed him hitting pads with her, and she looked like she didn't know what she was doing, and she couldn't hold the pads very well. You know what I mean? I'm not saying a chick can't hold pads well. I bet there are chicks like Holly Holm that could absolutely hold the pads for a man, but like, she looked like she'd never hold pads in her life. You know what I mean? Like, her arms were flying back because Mike Perry, you know, was just hitting him at normal strength, and she just couldn't hold him there. And like I said, I bet there are fighter chicks that could do that for guys, but it was obvious that Mike Perry's girlfriend couldn't. I don't know if that was a joke or not, but it appears to be real. And, you know, I feel like Mike Perry's way better than Mickey Gall. I think his wrestling and striking are way better than Mickey Gall's wrestling and jiu-jitsu, because that's really the only way Mickey Gall wins this fight is if he forces this to the ground and wins by rear naked choke. I feel like I said, I think Mike Perry's wrestling's way better than Mickey Gall's, and I think his striking's also way better. I think that as long as he doesn't get pulled to the ground somehow, he's going to win by knockout in the first round. And this is how I see this going. Even with the weird training, he should still be able to win the way I envision him winning. It's just, I don't know how well he's going to do against the better people if this is what he's really going to do. So I hope this is a joke or something, but I don't think it is. I am picking Mike Perry to win this fight, but like I said, I worry about his future fights. Finally, we got Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker, and to me, this is one of these fights where it's like, I feel like Dan has actually a really good shot at winning this fight early. I think both these guys like to start really fast, and I feel like it's just kind of whoever can catch who first. You know, I feel like people are not giving Dan Hooker the respect he deserves just because of how close his last fight was. I thought Dan Hooker won that fight pretty clearly, 3-2. I know a lot of people thought, what's his face, Paul Felder won, but don't forget, I mean, Dan Hooker was lining Paul Felder up a lot in those first 3 rounds, and that's what I feel like is probably going to happen in this fight. I think that if it goes to the 4th and 5th, I do think Poirier's going to win by knockout pretty easily, but I don't think he's going to get there. I think it's probably going to end in the first 3 rounds, and I think in that sense it can go either way. I think these guys are pretty even in terms of their overall striking early. Like I said, later I think Poirier's definitely got the advantage. On the ground, I think it's pretty close too. You know, Hooker has a lot of submission wins that people don't really talk about just because he doesn't go to the ground that often. But he before, when he was fighting outside the UFC, he has a lot of submission wins. And we saw in the fight against Paul Felder, when he was on top, he was able to get the back and shit like that pretty easily. I think that on the ground, this fight could go either way, even though I don't think it's going to go there. I think it ends in the first 3 rounds, and I think it's just whoever clips who first. And it's just a matter of opinion who you think is going to do that first. And I'm just leaning towards Hooker. I think he's got the reach and overall speed advantage early. And I think if Poirier is just rushing in on him, he's going to get caught. So I'm leaning towards Dan Hooker to win by knockout in the first 2 rounds. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.